Hi everyone. I'm going to be talking about email marketing, and before I start, maybe give you a little bit of context on why I'm talking about email marketing. I started sending out email campaigns back in 2001. I was working for a company called Cognos. They do business intelligence software, and they wanted to invite people to their demo sessions so that their salespeople could talk to prospects and try to sell to them. And email was just cheaper than direct mail. Direct mail also had to be translated in Dutch and Flemish because I'm based in Belgium. And we thought, you know, we have this database. Our salespeople have been gathering email addresses for quite a while, and let's just send them some emails. And that was before Europe had an opt-in policy. So we could basically send out emails to anyone without caring whether they had given us permission, yes or no. And we started doing that. In Outlook, sending HTML pages to 500 people at the same time, and I had lists of 10,000 people, so I had to repeat that process a couple of times because our server wouldn't allow me to send more emails out in BCC. And quite fast after that, I think only a couple of months, one of my salespeople come to me and he says, "Tamara, I can't get any emails delivered to one of my biggest clients. What have you done?" And I'm like, I don't know. And that's how I find out that there's certain things that you probably better not do when you do email marketing. I've learned everything that I'm talking about by just making mistakes myself. And I've made lots of mistakes in my time. I've sent out emails with subject lines where I forgot to remove the test part of it. I'm sure you can relate. Anyway, so email marketing is what I'm going to be talking about. Let me start by giving you a little bit of a stat on how important email marketing is today. And if you look at this stat here, it's a stat by eConsultancy. eConsultancy is a company in the UK, and they've got really, really great content on anything online marketing. They do, or they ask their audience, marketers, every year, what is the channel that drives most ROI for you? And email and SEO are the two that always come out on top. One year it's SEO, the other year it's email, and they're very, very close to each other. So email tends to deliver a very high ROI. And I looked up some stats, and I think this one comes from the CM Institute, which says that 8 out of 10 B2B content marketers use e-newsletters. So apparently all the content marketers, or a lot of them, are using newsletters, or at least doing some sort of email marketing to spread their content. And B2C, the number is pretty much the same. I think B2B is 83%, B2C is 80%. So newsletters are being used quite a lot. Now, when I was preparing my presentation, I was thinking, okay, so we have a lot of content people in this room. What do you and I have in common? Because I'm an email marketer. I produce a lot of content as well, but I'm an email marketer in the first place. And I was doing some digging, and I came up with a couple of things. Personas. We need to know our audience. We need to understand what people are looking for. We need to understand who they are, what kind of background they are, what their challenges are, what their typical objections are. We need to understand where people are coming from. The people that are in our audience, if we know them really, really well, if we can put a face and a name on them, basically, it makes it much, much easier for us to write our content, or to write emails to them, right? So personas is one thing that we've got in common. The other thing we've got in common is if you want to do email marketing well, you need to understand the buying journey. You need to understand from the very, very beginning where people are starting to sense that there is a need for something that they have, all the way to when they're making a repeat purchase and even beyond. We need to understand each and every step in that journey, because then we can trigger emails, or we can trigger content in your case, to these people at these different stages. Right? So there's another thing that we've got in common. The other main thing that we've got in common is content. I need good content to send out my email campaigns, and you guys have content that you want to spread. Now, email is one of those media that if you have a big enough list, or if you have a list, or if you go out to someone that has a list, as Ian just suggested as well, then you can get your content in front of a lot of people. Just posting it on your blog post, for example, is probably not going to reach a whole audience unless you try to amplify that audience by sending them, you know, an email, spreading your content on social media and all those other channels. An email basically is like steroids for your content. If you have a really good list, or you have only a small list of really good influencers in your area, the content that you've written, send them an email, you know, ask them to spread it for you. You know, that kind of thing is what email really can do for content marketing. Because email marketing as such, email is a channel, right? Content marketing is also a tactic. We can both work together to deliver really great results. But email only works if you use it correctly, if you use it in the right way. And now, I don't really see you guys with all these lights here. How many of you know the person that's sitting next to you? Just raise your hands. Very high, raise them high. I can't see anything. Okay, you're going to get to know your neighbor. Because what I want you to do is take a minute, talk to your neighbor, the person sitting next to you, and talk about the one thing that really annoys you about emails, marketing emails that you receive. So, look to your left or to your right, and have a quick chat about, because I'm going to tell you I ask this question a lot when I do courses, and the answers usually are more or less the same. So take a minute. You can introduce yourself as well. Don't just watch your laptops. Talk to each other. Come on. I asked this question at Search Love in London, and I got the audience to really connect with each other, so that's really great. Who's keeping time? Is the 1 minute is up? Yeah? Okay, good. Now all the attention goes to me again. All right, so what are the things that people hate with a vengeance? They really hate it about email marketing. Raise your hand really high so I can see it if one of the things you mentioned was, I hate receiving emails I did not ask for. Raise your hand if that is what you talked about. Raise it high so I can see it. Okay, we don't like emails that we did not ask for. Raise your hand if you said, I do not like emails that do not make sense to me, that are not relevant to me. Raise your hand again, raise it high. We don't like content that is not relevant to us. Who doesn't like emails that are being sent too often? Some people are raising their hands already. Yep, lots of you as well. Subject line is too vague. Someone mentioned that? Yeah? It's hard to unsubscribe, or I can't unsubscribe. Who hates that? Everybody does, right? You have to go to a page and then you have to give your login details and you don't remember them, and you know, it's hard. When they say, "Dear Tamara," and they don't even know you, people don't like that either, right? And there's a big list of things that people don't like. Broken links, merge tags that don't work, hello first name. Who's received an email that says hello first name? Right? Or something else that's broken. And not being able to reply. Apparently people do not like the fact that they cannot reply to an email that you send them. So when you send emails coming from a no reply email address, that basically tells them, I don't want to hear from you, right? So I had a conversation with my ex-boyfriend's brother, and he was like, you know what, Tamara, all these companies send me emails and I can't reply to them, and for me email is a two-way conversation, right? So those are the things people hate. If I ask you this question, if I send you 3 emails in the past and you did not really find them very interesting, how big is the chance that you will open the next email that I send you? Keep that in mind, because you probably won't. So that means that each and every email that you send, the fact that people will open it and read it is based on each and every previous email that you've sent. So each and every time that you send an email, you need to provide value. If you don't, people will just not pay attention anymore. So, I'm not going to make you do this exercise, but usually when I do a training course, I ask my students, now think of that one email newsletter or email, that one brand that sends you emails, and you almost every time open that email. Everyone has an email like that. For me, it's the emails that are sent on a daily basis by e-consultancy, or it's an email from a daily deals company that I receive every day. I open those ones every single day because, and these are the reasons why you open those emails. First of all, the content is really, really interesting. If the content's good, and based on your past experience with that sender, you know that the content's going to be good, there's a good chance that you'll open that email. Another one, if it's relevant to me personally, if it's relevant to the situation I'm in, or relevant to a product I'm looking into, or relevant to an interest that something I'm interested in, I'm going to read it. If it has news and trends, people love reading news and trends. If it has great deals, everybody wants a deal. If people sign up to newsletters, it's because either they want the great content or they want a good deal. It's timely. Emails that are very, very timely, also something that that people love. Great tips and tricks. People love to learn. I have more examples later on in the presentation. If they're fun to read, a couple of people always come up with, I read this newsletter because it's just fun to read. It has personality, the content is written in a funny way. Or if it's inspirational, and inspirational can be a lot of things. To one person, inspirational could be the email that my online retailer sent me, and it's got really great clothes in it, and I love to shop for clothes or shoes. For another person, it might be, nice destinations to travel to. For another person, it might be, this content really inspires me to do something for my company. All kinds of things. So think about these things. Take a picture of this slide, because this is the only slide that matters today. So I can basically go home now. But no, I won't do that. All right, so content and email marketing, kind of like a match made in heaven. We both need each other. From my perspective as an email marketer, I need you guys. And you, as content marketers, you need email to be able to, spread that content even further. So, how do you make sure that your content stands out in the inbox? Right, so a couple of things for you to keep in mind. There's lots of tips and tricks in this presentation, and I'll make it available to you guys afterwards. I'll talk to Tutsche to see how we can do that. So how do you make it stand out in the inbox? The first thing that you need to think about is, okay, what is my goal for this email that I'm going to send? Is it a newsletter where I want people to come to my website and read stuff? Is it a white paper that I've written and I want people to come to my website and download it so I can generate leads for my company? All kinds of things. If, whatever the content is, think about what is exactly the goal that you're trying to reach. And in function of that answer, so what am I trying to do here? You're going to decide whether it's going to be content that you put in a newsletter, or you're going to send out an email that only has one content piece, for example, a dedicated email. So think really well about what it is that you're trying to achieve. And then the next thing, think about that audience. You as content marketers need to segment your audience as well. As email marketers, if we send everything to everybody, you're not going to be providing value every time to people. So you need to think really well about which content is right for which audience. If I'm, let's say, a software company, and I have 3 different target groups, let's say. I have the C-level people, the CEO and the CIO and all those kinds of people. Then I have, let's say, the IT managers, and then I have, let's say, the marketing manager. Those 3 different audiences, they need different kinds of content. You know that. Right? In email also, it makes sense to split up those audiences. And you can do that in a clever way as well by, let's say for the IT people, in my newsletter, I put this article on top, and for the marketing people, I put this article on top, and for the C-level people, maybe I'll send them a different kind of message. Right? So think about how you're going to segment your audience and who you're going to send what to. And then think about what it is that you want them to do. I told you about the goal. So what is the one action that you want people to take after opening your email? Because in essence, the email only needs to do one thing. It needs to drive me from A to B. A is my inbox, B is the landing page or the article that you want people to read. But that email that's sitting in between in that inbox, I want them to be out of that email as fast as possible because the real action is going on my website. Right? So that email, you need to really think about what is it that I'm expecting of my audience? What is it when someone opens that email that I expect them to do? We all, as email marketers, have this fantasy about consumers or people that consume our content, that they're like sitting around with friends behind their computer and showing the fun emails that they receive. Probably that does not happen. This is probably more likely the case. I'm sitting in front of my inbox and I'm like, 100 emails. Which ones am I going to read first, right? Is all of this interesting? Probably not. So the mindset with which you read your emails is much, much less than what we would hope people would do with our emails. These days, with you know, the mobile devices and everything, people are just reading emails, waiting to swipe, you know, to delete. More than 50% of emails are being opened on a mobile device these days. And the mindset that people have when they're opening, think about opening your mail program, your email app on your mobile phone. When you open that, what is the first thing that you do? You refresh, see which new emails are in there. And then very, very likely, the first thing that you do is you very quickly scan through your inbox to see where are the important emails. Is there an email from my boss? Is there an email from my mom, from my husband, from my, you know, whoever? You quickly scan through that mailbox to see if there's anything important in there. And then the next thing that you do, you select all the emails that you want to delete. Right? And that decision to delete an email in your inbox on your mobile phone takes probably less than a second. Less than a tenth of a second. Right? Now, people read emails everywhere. They read them while they're having breakfast. They read them while they're on the train or the bus or the metro. They read them even while driving. Who here does that? Don't raise your hand. Don't tell your colleagues. You read them in the waiting room when you're waiting at the doctor's. You're reading them at a bar when your friends are, you know, outside smoking a cigarette or they went to the bathroom or whatever. You read your emails. Who reads their emails first thing in the morning before they get out of bed? For whom it's the last thing they do before they go to bed? Okay. Not too many. That's good. Yeah. No comments. Another question. Think about it. When you decide to open an email on your mobile phone or even in your inbox, doesn't really matter. What is the thing that you base that decision on? Who says it's the sender name? Do you decide based on the name of the company that sends your email, that sends the email, to open the email, yes or no? Who says subject line? Well, for those of you that have your mobile phones with you, open your email app very quickly and then close it because I don't want you to be distracted. If when you open your email app on your mobile phone, the thing that stands out is a sender name. It's really bold, it really stands out, and then you see the first 4, 5, 6 words of the subject line depending on your settings, on how large the fonts are, and then you see the first line of text. Yeah? So that sender name really, really stands out. And research also shows that people base their decision to open an email on the name of the sender. So very often, when you are associated with content, when the name of the sender is associated with good content, I don't even look at the subject line anymore to open the email because I know the content's going to be good. If I'm like, sometimes they send me good stuff, sometimes they don't, that's when I'll pay more attention to the subject line. Yeah? Keep those things in mind. Right, so with email, there's 3 things that I need to convince you of. The first thing that I need to convince you of is I want you to open my email. Then the next thing I need to convince you of is I need you to click on that link that I want you to click. And then the third thing, in case you want someone to fill in a form and do something, you need to convert them on the landing page to actually do that. So there's 3 typical points where people will not pay attention or you can lose them. Right? For the subject line, again, for opening, let me say it like that, for opening, if your past emails weren't interesting, right? I mentioned that before, current content will probably get less attention. Keep that in mind. The subject line is most probably the only thing that people will read. And I still see subject lines that say, newsletter, December 2015. Doesn't really say anything. So make that subject line count. Make sure that you feature something, just like writing a very compelling title for a blog post or for an article or for a presentation or anything that you want to capture attention, you need to apply the same logic to writing your email. It needs to be compelling enough for me to draw me into that email. So asking questions that provoke people to open the email. Saying that you have a list of things, that you have tips. You know, think of something that will trigger people to, you know, that will trigger their curiosity to open the email. This is a situation that we've struggled with in email marketing since 2005 already. Images are not shown. So all those great image-based emails that people are sending out, look at your open rate. If your open rate is 30%, that means 70% of the people that are in your database have not downloaded the images. Because it's only when someone downloads the images from an email that I know that you've opened my email. And as a technology, that's how the technology behind it works. So if you see that you have an open rate of 30%, 2/3 of your audience have not seen the content, or have not seen the images at least. So if you put important content into your images, people are not going to notice. And I see a lot of companies still send out emails that have like these really beautiful big pictures at the top with a really catchy title in them, but if I don't see it, then it's useless. So try to get away from opening your emails with these really huge banners on the top. Try to open with a logo that is not too big, and then a title, something that pulls me into that content. Because in copywriting, we always say that you know, every line of text needs to trigger you to read the next line of text. So the subject line needs to trigger you to read the headline needs to trigger you to open the email, right? Because when people are reading their emails with a preview pane on the bottom, they only see the top side of your email, and if that top side is a broken image, that's a pity. So the other thing, and you probably already know, that people don't read, they scan. They just really, you only have, do I have it on the next slide? On the internet, the average attention span is 8 seconds. You probably have 3 to 5 seconds at most to draw people into your email and to convince them to do something. So within those couple of seconds, I need to understand your message. So when you're creating a newsletter, just, you know, have a quick look at it, or have someone else that wasn't involved in it, have a quick look at it and ask them if something stands out. Because I need to draw you into my content. I need to tell you quite immediately what I want you to do, because otherwise you're gone, right? So, the other thing, told you, emails are very often read on a mobile device these days. A lot of emails are only read on a mobile device. If the email doesn't work, I mean, if the design isn't optimized for your mobile devices, chances are really, really high that you're going to delete the email and never ever see it again. So you need, if you don't focus yet on optimizing your HTML emails for mobile devices, you're going to lose a lot of people, right? So make sure that you do that. And I'm deliberately not talking about responsive design, because you're going to need a good mix of both responsive design and fluid design to make sure that it renders correctly on all the mobile devices. Because that's the other fun part about email marketing. We've got all these different email clients and all these different mobile clients, and they all render HTML just slightly differently, and yeah, makes our life interesting, challenging. I told you that when you open your email app, you see the from name bolded, and then you see the first 4 to 5 words of the subject line, which means your first 4 to 5 words of the subject line have to really be the most important things. And then you see there's 2 lines of text in Gmail also. You see like a couple of, you know, you see this whole line. That's the first line of text from your email. And that usually says, if you can't see the images, click here. Wasted opportunity again, because those 3 things, especially on a mobile device, they will work together to get you to open the email. So think about it. If you have this line of text as the very first line in your email, if you can't see the image, just click here. Think again. Try to put something else there. Put that in front of that, so that that shows up as the first line. The next thing, this is a Dutch example, but you get the picture. Your email, your newsletter has to be scannable. I just really quickly need to be able to see what it's about. To make it scannable and to, do the get the most out of those couple of seconds that you have, you need to make your titles really, really big so that they really stand out. So that the only thing that I will read in this email are actually the titles. Those 4 titles. That's the only thing I'll read. That intro text, I will only start reading that if the title was slightly interesting. If that intro text is 5 lines of text, I won't read it because I do not like reading a block of text. So my advice to email marketers in general is never have paragraphs that are longer than 2.5 lines, however wide that column is, right? A paragraph is 2.5 lines, no more, because otherwise it becomes a block of text and I don't want to read it anymore. So make it scannable. I've got an example here. I like Wufoo's newsletter because it doesn't have a lot of topics. The titles stand out, so I know what it's about. You see, you do not need a lot of content. Because again, the email needs to take you from A to B. It needs to take me from the inbox to the page where I'm going to read the article. So keep it sweet and short so that people go where you want them to go. Here's an example from Unbounce. This is not a very sexy email, right? It doesn't look very nice, but it does what it needs to do. It has titles that jump out at me, and the only thing I'll read in that newsletter are the titles, right? So make those titles the real focus. I'm not a big fan of really long newsletters. I think 3 to 5 topics is the maximum that you should put in there, because people just, they don't have a lot of attention. If you have more content than that, then send out more emails. You can increase that frequency, right? What else was I going to say? And yeah, it doesn't have to be nice. In email marketing, it's the content that matters. If the content's good, they'll read it. Right? I open this email each and every time. Why? Because the content is good. There's always something in there that I like. What else? Oh yeah. When you write a piece of copy that is meant for an email, it has to be short and sweet. Write it, and then take another, well, we used to write with pens. I would say take a red pen and start scratching out, but just rewrite it. How can I say what I'm saying in a shorter way? Are there any words in this sentence that's just too much, that is not really adding value to that sentence? Keep it simple, keep it clear, keep it direct. Don't put too much content in there. Here in this example, the text on the left, it's only 2 sentences, but it's a block of text of 6 lines. And I immediately sense something like, that's a lot of text. While on the right-hand side, it's exactly the same message, but much, much shorter. That's what I want you to do. Right? So again, keep those things in mind. Also, when you want people to take action, you need to tell them to take action. You need to really make that call to action, that link that you want them to click on, make that stand out. If it really blends into the rest of your content, I won't notice. So, as for an example, if your overall color that's being used in the email is, let's say, a lot of blue, then a blue button or a blue link is not going to stand out. An orange button that's a bit larger, or a link that's like 3 times the size of the rest of the fonts, that is what's going to stand out. That is what draws my eye, and that is what, my eyes will focus on. So make sure that you make that visible, but also link multiple times to it. If it's, let's say, a white paper that you want people to download, then link to that white paper or to that landing page in 2 to 3 places throughout the email. What else? Content types. What kind of content are people looking for in emails typically? What do they sign up for? It's different things. I mean, at different stages of the buying cycle, they might be interested in, the products that you have to sell, the services that you have to offer, the white papers that you've written, the events that you've put on, research that you've done. I personally, I call it quote-unquote blogging, because I have a blog that I started back in 2005 about email marketing. It's called b2bemailmarketing.com, and probably 95% of the content on that blog is not my content. What I've done from the very beginning is whenever I read something that I thought was interesting, I shared it on my blog. And that blog, basically, if I had not started that back in 2005, I would not be standing here today. Right? So all my newsletters that I send out in an automated way, my RSS feed from my blog pulls into my MailChimp account, and MailChimp sends out a weekly email with the new blog posts. I don't even lift a finger to do that. But that is all curated content. It's all content that someone else wrote. So that is definitely something that you could do. I'm not saying that you should only do that, for sure. I mean, it's worked for me, but doesn't mean that'll work for your company. But it is okay to sometimes link to other people's content. Case studies, news, links, stuff that you've mentioned before in your newsletter. It's okay to repeat that, maybe not the week after, but a couple of weeks, a couple of months later. You can reuse the same content. People will not have they won't have read all your content. Top 10 lists, experts giving their view, how-to lists. It's just a bunch of examples, right? These are things that people like to read in newsletters. So just as an example. And the last thing with email marketing and with landing pages, you need to test. You need to test everything. Test everything from the name of the sender from which you're sending out the emails to the subject lines of your emails. Test the calls to action in your email. Test maybe the design even. Test. There's only one thing that will tell you what will work for you specifically. Because when I say images don't work, and be careful with images, if you've tested it and you come back to me and say, Tamara, I've tested with and without images, or with lots of images and with less images, and lots of images work for me and my audience, and I can't tell you to do anything different. Your own results will tell you. So test as much as you can. And how do you know if it was a successful email? There's lots of metrics that we can go into. There's you can look at open rates and click-to rates and click-to-open rates and bounce rates and unsubscribe rates and complaint rates. Those are the typical metrics that only the person that sends out the email should care about. Unless you're a publisher. If you're a publisher, probably what you want is to drive as much traffic to your website as possible, because then you can ask for higher rates for the advertising that you sell on your website, because more people come to your website. But basically, the only metrics that anyone else should care about are, I don't know, in your context, maybe the number of shares that this email has triggered, maybe the number of downloads, maybe the number of leads generated, maybe the number of registrations, or maybe the number of incoming links. I don't know. I mean, you know that for you. You know what the goal was of your campaign. I once had a client that said to me, Tamara, we did this campaign to promote the new iPhone 5 at the time, and it didn't sell, or we didn't sell any iPhone 5s due to that campaign. But we did sell other things. So they generated like 5,000 euros, I think, with that campaign. Was that campaign successful? I ask you, was that campaign successful? It did not answer the objective. The objective was to sell iPhone 5. So no, it was not successful. Yes, it generated money, which is good, but it wasn't successful. So these are the things that you can measure when it comes to email marketing. And that is the end of my presentation. I have one last thing that I'd like to share with you. And then we can, if you have questions, we can answer those. I am helping MediaPost with their Email Insider Summit. And the next one, the last one was in Portugal. The next one is going to be in Chamonix in France. And the concept of that conference is they invite highly visible brands to come to the conference for free. So if you're a VIP brand, you get to come for free. The only thing you have to pay is your ticket. And they bring 30, 40, 50 marketers together in a very intimate setting. And in the mornings, you have really top-notch presentations about email marketing. So if you're interested in that, let me know. In the afternoon, they go skiing and stuff, so it's a really boring conference. That was a joke, by the way. You can laugh. So that's it. If you're interested in this, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm at the end of my presentation. I thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions, now is the time to ask them. Thank you. Any questions? Everything was clear? Yep, there's a question over there.
Well, I actually have two questions.
Sure.
The first one is about the open and bounce rate. currently the clients on mobile phones, especially Gmail, for example, for Android, it's very difficult to delete an email before looking into it. I mean, they have put a method for that, but it's not really quick. So you just open it and then delete it. Mm-hmm. And I think that would quite change the ratios that you get.
Yeah. An open rate, the one thing you need to know about an open rate, it is not an absolute truth. Because I told you, open rates are calculated by who's downloading the pictures in this email. So the pictures are automatically downloaded. You may have opened that email for like not even half a second and you're counted as an open. So opens, I tend to look at an open rate as a trend over time. And if I see that that trend, if there's like major, you know, some campaigns have really big open rates and some have really low open rates. For me, that is an indication, especially with the really low ones. The really low ones usually indicate maybe there's an issue with not being delivered into the inbox. The really high ones, I start looking into, okay, so why could this have been a very highly, I mean, but I never look at, if it says that you opened my email, I don't immediately just trust that you actually did because of that reason. That was your first question.
Yeah, and the second one is about the fluid email design.
The what?
Fluid email design.
Yes.
I think it's really still not the time for a fluid design in email because of the fact that Outlook and Gmail doesn't support that.
The thing is, yeah, you need to...
media queries, it requires media queries, and media queries are not supported by these clients.
That's why I'm saying you need to test it really well. Only going with responsive design and media queries is not enough. What I typically advise clients is keep your email at least to a one-column email instead of having a one big column and a smaller side column, or have content in two columns, because then immediately that will be easier to read on a mobile device. I don't want to do this all the time and then zoom in and zoom out. So enlarge the fonts. I'm a big fan of bigger fonts in email because for two reasons. First of all, I'm getting older and I can't read as well as I could. Right? I need new glasses, and tiny fonts really bug me, and they annoy me because I can't read them. And second of all, on the mobile device, you need bigger fonts for people to read those emails. Now, the other thing I was going to say is, if you write in bigger font sizes, you'll be tempted to write less copy. And I think that's a really big thing. Less is more when it comes to email. Be focused, be clear, point to where you want people to go. Does that answer your questions?
Yeah, actually.
Good. Anyone else have a question? Everything was clear? Well, then I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.